Welcome back to the social work race. What are we talking about today? Tough one, interesting one. We're talking about writing versus social working, right? So, if we if we look at this, right, the expectations that we have as social workers, we are being pulled on one side by the families we're working to support. They have expectations of us, but also we have the the institution that we work for, the local authority. They're going to be pulling us in one direction as well. So we've got a lot going on, and the pressure that is put on us to perform in a certain way is a lot. Okay, and so you can get into the swing of it over time. You would definitely get into the swing of it, but when you shift your focus, or if you're gifted in a particular area of social work, then look, I'm going to show you what happens when you write well versus when you do the work well. Okay, so let's be clear. And I just want to say, I'm not against management, and I'm not against families, obviously, but management have a role because they have to uphold the requirements of the law. And the only way that they can do that is to make sure that you're doing your job. And the way that they expect you to do your job, check this out, the only way that they can know if you're really doing the job according to the law, is by the use of statistics. There is some, which is what you call um, the quantitative approach, or the quantitative estimations and so forth. Statistics, numbers. They have a set of numbers that they must hit. That's their job. Their job isn't to social work. Their job is to make sure that we're doing things on time, in effect. In a timely fashion, because there are time scales that the law requires us to meet in terms of visits and assessment completion dates and so forth, right? And for example, if you've got a local authority that is what most of the social workers are not completing their work on time, meaning that they're not completing their, say, child and family assessments within 45 working days, it means that we're not doing our job. And in actual fact, problems do the problems that we approach the family with in the first place, they do increase, right? So when you are doing your work, forget the actual work with the families, but when you're doing your work, the management are going to be looking at the numbers, right? Whereas the family is pulling you this way to say, we need your help. What work can you do with us or for us? Because we have needs. And if you put in that work with the family, it won't necessarily reflect in the numbers. So I just want you to know, and this is a very short podcast or session, right? Managers have to do their job because their managers, eventually government, want to know how well we're doing. And government only care about numbers, really. They don't really care about narrative or qualitative data. They don't really care about that. They want to know, well, actually, social work has improved because we're doing our visits early and on time, and we're completing our assessments on time. And that's how everybody understands how we're doing. But families are like, we don't care about those numbers. We want to know, are you able to help? That's the thing, right? So it's a real struggle because you're being pulled towards a family that wants your help. Now, some of us are as social workers. I don't think many, that's my opinion though, are about being human and saying, how can I help? That's why I got into social work in the first place. Whereas some of us are about the numbers. We can get the work done on time. Now, let me tell you this. If you choose to social work deeply, to social work in a way that the families feel supported, and you could probably get them out of a situation. If you choose to social work like that, you will pay a price, okay? And that price is that you can put in real good work and turn things around because you're that person, you're that social worker. If you do that, the price that you pay is that your administration will be on the ropes. You know what I mean by that? Like you're in a boxing ring and you're on the ropes. And when you're on the ropes, you're in trouble. You will put yourself out of time frame. You're not necessarily going to be able to meet your time scales. And that means a lot to firstly, your line manager, who's under pressure from the service manager, who's under pressure from their management and thereafter. So you have to understand that that's the price you pay for doing good work. Now remember, we are short-staffed in every local authority. And so you have to count the cost of your intervention. Yes, it's nice when the family say, oh man, thank you so much for helping. You've really, things have been turned around. Or sometimes you might put a lot of work into a family and nothing comes of it. That's what happens. Or even in adults as well. But let me tell you, as much as you get a hug and gifts and praise, if you don't get those assessments done on time, the question is, are you a good social worker? Now, why am I bringing that up? I brought it up in a previous podcast. Because you're not a good social worker if you do not get your work done in a timely fashion. Now, what you could do is you could do the very basics, and you could honestly just go into the home, assess and think, okay, from my super fast intuition, these are the problems, we can solve them like this, and just make the referrals off. And yeah, you can get cases done like that. And when you get your assessment done, actually maybe ahead of time, it makes you look good. Your stats are good. This is a good social worker. You will be patted on the back in the institution you work for, and they will think you're a great social worker because you're getting stuff done on time. And more often, that's how you are seen as someone who is a good social worker, because you get the work done that makes their management feel, or it represents the management as doing really well. I'm trying to word this carefully, right? Because if you get your work done in a timely way, or even ahead of time, you're going to be loved where you work, and probably it will accelerate your ability to climb the ranks because you're a good social worker. But that doesn't mean you're putting in the work with the families. It actually might mean that all you care about is the performance to the institution. And so there's a dilemma. And a social worker's dilemma, especially when they have a lot more on their caseload than they can possibly manage effectively, is the dilemma is that you have to balance how you support families versus the time scales. Do you get that? I know you get that. Now, I want to end on this point. You might not feel good about the point I'm going to end on. And this is by no way an exhaustive session, right? But I will say this. No matter how much work you do, no matter how much good work you put in, you could visit a family 10 times. It doesn't, you fail as a social worker if you don't get your work done on time. Simple. Yeah. And so the institution are going to say, look, he might be doing good work, but his stuff is late, and that's it. And that's what it is for social workers. So you've got to balance how much effort you put in to a family, to a case. You have to evaluate very intentionally. And instead of trying to take on all the work yourself, learn about the resources that are around you to support you. Not every local authority has all the infrastructures equally. Some of them just have far less workers and far less resources. And so you have to kind of balance out how you're going to use those resources to help you as a social worker, or you'll be on the ropes for the whole of your career. I hope that helped to give a perspective of the game. Please share, please subscribe, and hopefully, give me some feedback in the comments about what you think makes a good social worker, and your thoughts about writing really well versus social working really well. And you know what I'm going to look at in the very next episode, which I'm going to do right now, but it's going to be in the next episode. I'm going to look at the differences between how men or male and female social workers write. Check it out.